And lo, before the flood, the Lord said to Noah, "Make yourself an ark, bring out every kind of living creature." That was the Old Testament. But what happens today when disaster threatens animals? A powerful force, a zoo, a foreign government, even the U.S. Department of Justice, often calls from on high and enlists the services of one man, Pat Craig, founder of the Wild Animal Sanctuary in Colorado, who's emerged as the go-to guy for orchestrating high-stakes rescues around the world. Last spring, we accompanied this modern-day Noah to a zoo in Puerto Rico for his most ambitious mission yet.
The story will continue in a moment.
These lions were once literally the pride of Puerto Rico, housed at the Dr. Juan A. Rivera Zoo in the coastal town of Mayaguez, the only zoo on the island. But after years of decline, mismanagement, and neglect, this was the tableau that greeted Pat Craig and his wife Monica when they arrived here from Colorado.
What was your impression when you got to the zoo for the first time?
The animals were very, very sad looking, and some of them were very, very sick. I felt physically and emotionally overwhelmed.
And even while we were there, animals died almost on a weekly basis.
Correct.
So that felt even worse because we're present, and yet we were there too late.
Over the course of a decade, the U.S. Department of Agriculture cited the zoo 24 times for substandard conditions and animal mistreatment. After Hurricanes Irma and Maria ravaged the island, the zoo closed to the public in 2018. For the more than 300 winged, scaled, and four-legged residents still captive, the situation turned from bad to downright desperate.
We saw a zebra that had a horrible wound on her leg and her tail, and she couldn't stand up. We saw a pig that had a skin condition. Her skin was just falling apart.
A mountain lion's untreated cancer had been allowed to spread all over its body.
Seeing the mountain lion suffering the way that he was, that broke my heart. And not being able to,
Help him. Yeah. It was just so evident that this facility was way beyond repair.
The U.S. Department of Justice, which enforces federal animal welfare laws in the states and Puerto Rico, agreed, and in February staged an extraordinary intervention, sending a battalion of agents to the zoo to evacuate every single species to permanent homes on the mainland. To lead this mission, to captain this ark as it were, the DOJ tapped Wild Animal Sanctuary founder Pat Craig. We were there in April to witness the operation. Equal parts military-style logistics and battlefield extraction. Among the targets, 7 lions sweltering in a concrete bunker.
And they never hooked up the power after the hurricane. And they never hooked up the power to the zoo.
never.
Wait. There's a zoo that's functioning with animals there, and there's no power?
There's no
power.
electricity.
And then if you look at the pictures from the inside of their building, it's the old steel bars, just like jail cells all in a row.
When it came time to coax the cats out of their cages, Craig entered the lion's den.
I gather the lions weren't necessarily happy to see you and go with you. What happened?
They're definitely defensive because they don't know who we are and what we're doing and why. And so we show up and we're like, believe me, you got to trust me. We're trying to help you here.
The sweet-talking didn't work. So they deployed Plan B, sedation. Hard to watch, but accepted practice when rescuing uncooperative carnivores. Over the course of 5 months, Craig and his team of 20 used patience, prodding, pursuit, and grape jelly to lure each animal into its custom-built crate. A camel, a kangaroo, a rhinoceros, these stubborn hippos. Monica Craig, a native Spanish speaker, had hoped to coordinate with the local staff. But the team from Colorado mostly had to go it alone. She says the zookeepers in Puerto Rico often refuse to help.
We tried many days to communicate with them and trying to tell them, hey, we're not bad people. We're just trying to do what we're supposed to be doing for these animals and give them a better home.
What was the response to that?
They were upset. They were like, no, I don't think that's right. The animals belong here.
It was a sentiment shared by many in the community, and at times resistance curdled into outright sabotage. The rescue team had nearly wrangled Mundi, once a star attraction, into her transport crate when suddenly,
out of nowhere, this elephant just flies up, tears out of there, starts running around.
What do you think happened?
Well, I think somebody shot her with a BB gun, if you ask me.
And hit her in the rear end.
Hit her in the rear end just to make her hate that crate.
Yep.
Now she thinks that crate did something to her.
we reached out to Puerto Rico's Department of Natural and Environmental Resources, which is responsible for the zoo. In a statement, it said the animals were provided with comprehensive care and denied there was any neglect, blaming problems at the zoo on hurricane damage, limited resources, and aging animals. Once the transport was finally ready, a police escort to the airport. Then the animals were loaded, one by one, onto charter flights bound for new homes Craig had arranged at sanctuaries across the U.S. How do you ferry to safety an 8,000-pound elephant like Mundi? On a 747 cargo jet, of course. Departure brought a sigh of relief.
When she took off, I cried because I said, thank you, God. She's in, it's over. She's out of here. There's no question about it anymore.
Pat and Monica Craig took as many of the rescues as they could back to their 1,200-acre facility. A vast menagerie roams the grassy enclosures on the high plains of eastern Colorado. Each of the 700-plus animals here came with a sad backstory, wagging their own tales of woe, as it were. Tigers kept in garages as pets. Lions saved from a zoo in war-torn Ukraine. Bears abused at a Korean medical facility. Now 64, Craig got the idea for the place as a teenager in the 1970s, when a friend who worked at a zoo gave him a tour behind the scenes.
There were all these animals, lions and tigers, that were in small cages, and he said, these will be euthanized. And I thought, wow, this is crazy, you know. These are healthy, they're not old, they're not sick.
Craig decided right then and there to open his own sanctuary on his parents' small Colorado farm. With few regulations to guide him, he built the animal enclosures himself and scoured biology books for pointers.
Did you have any experience with lions and tigers?
No, none.
Did you have a degree in zoology?
No, I was just starting college back then. It was going to be a business degree.
And he quickly learned that lions and tigers are no house cats.
In the early years, I was in the hospital more times than you could count. It was like, okay, don't do that again. And, you know, it's just so all those years of making mistakes and not getting killed.
What specifically does a mistake look like?
Pretty bad. I've had my left arm almost completely torn off. I've had bit through the chest and collapsed lungs.
The animals Craig can handle, but on his missions to hostile environments around the world, it's the people he often needs extra help managing. Heavily armed federal marshals accompanied Craig when the Department of Justice dispatched him to retrieve maltreated big cats that had been kept by the notorious Tiger King, Joe Exotic, the unlikely Netflix sensation, and his associates. These two were among the 141 animals Craig liberated and brought back here.
What kind of conditions was Joe Exotic keeping these guys in Oklahoma?
Well, you know, it was just all these really small cages that were just in, you know, line after line because it was a gigantic breeding operation primarily. Let's go.
The rescue missions and the sanctuary operate on an annual budget of $34 million. Funding comes mostly from private donations. When animals arrive here, this is often their first stop, designed to minimize shock by mimicking the conditions they came from. Here, they're evaluated and given a treatment plan, whether it's medication or emergency surgery. Craig and staff veterinarian Dr. Michaela Vetters introduced us to Chad and Malawi, both rescued from Puerto Rico.
How confident do we feel about our locks here?
Confident.
This guy wants to get out.
She says, yeah.
This guy's ready to hang out with us.
They suffer from permanent neurological damage, likely caused by malnutrition, something Craig could spot just by looking.
You see how she keeps doing that?
Yeah,
but
different
really,
angle.
she just doesn't have a control over it.
Head tilting at an angle.
Yeah, we've had literally hundreds of lions that have come through that have had that kind of problem.
You've seen this before.
Oh, yeah.
The sanctuary devises a special diet for each animal, which requires 100,000 pounds of food per week, mainly donated by nearby Walmarts. Occasional cupcakes included. When we met him, Mikey the bear, another asylum seeker from Puerto Rico, was midway through his rehab.
Right now he's in his lockout just so we can medically manage him.
What did you see the first time you saw him?
He was in a great deal of pain, very gingerly moving. We assume he's got, a great deal of arthritis, which we've provided medications for, and now he's getting around almost like a young bear.
Nursing animals like Mikey back to physical health is one thing. Ministering to their emotional wounds is often a bigger challenge. Having been raised in captivity, many of the animals arrive with what amounts to severe PTSD. And they must be taught to trust the humans caring for them.
They're already mad at people anyway because of whatever people had done. I had one tiger years ago that anytime you came near, he'd want to hit the fence and kill you.
What's the timetable for trying to ease some of the trauma these animals have been through?
Some were beaten and some were starved, some were mentally tormented to a degree, and so every case is different. So some of them will do it in a matter of days, some will be a few weeks.
Doesn't that story imply, however traumatic this may have been, it's not irreversible?
It's not irreversible.
The goal of all this rehab is to get these wild animals to act the part. Remember Mundi? At the zoo, she had zero contact with other elephants for more than 30 years. We accompanied Craig on a visit to a refuge in Georgia where he placed Mundi under the care of conservationist Carol Buckley. This marked the first time Craig and the elephant had seen each other since Puerto Rico.
What do you notice?
Well, first thing, she just looks so much healthier, and just her demeanor is so much calmer and nicer. Every day when I would go see her in the zoo, it just hurt. And then now to see this is just amazing, just truly amazing.
Hey, pretty lady.
Buckley provides the care and feeding, but happily admits Mundi's real mentors are the other elephants here.
You're just the innkeeper.
That's
You're just
right.
the chef.
Hey, I just open and close doors and make sure the waters are running, And the other elephant knows what they need to learn, and they're instructing them. It's fantastic. It is exactly the same as what happens in the wild.
That's the same principle Craig employs at his sanctuary. And after 2 months of rehab, the lions from Puerto Rico were ready to enter their permanent habitat.
All right, Robert's gonna open the door.
We were on hand for the release. No one quite knew what to expect, not least the lions.
You can go, yeah.
The first was reticent. But one by one,
This must just be literally life-changing.
they started to venture out, enclosed for their safety, and ours, but otherwise in a vast ocean of green.
These guys have been in captivity their whole lives. This is the first.
Yeah, this will be the first time ever that they've been able to either run or live in a big space like this, even have deep grass.
Makes you feel good?
Yeah, absolutely. This is why we do this.
There were a few scuffles, but for Pat Craig, that's exactly what he'd hoped for. Lions acting like, well, lions. The animals come to this sanctuary from all over the world, but in this unlikely setting, here silhouetted by the Rockies in eastern Colorado, they find more than just sanctuary. They finally find a home.
A look at life after Tiger King
You have to learn a lot of it, what it's like to be a tiger.
at 60minutesovertime.com.